Elias exhaled, slow and steady. Beside him, Corporal Rhea Malik tightened her grip on her pulse rifle, her knuckles whitening. "Think they'll actually try diplomacy first," she muttered. Elias didn't answer. He'd seen this before. The way the Council's commanders strutted ahead of their troops, the way their voices dripped with condescension. Diplomacy was just a formality before the boot came down. And right on cue, the Council's lead officer, Vextal, stepped forward. His helmet's visor gleamed like polished onyx. His voice amplified into a booming echo. "Human defenders, you stand in violation of Galactic Edict 7-9. Lay down your arms, surrender this outpost, and your lives will be spared." A pause, theatrical. "Resist, and you will be erased." A ripple of laughter rolled through the Council's ranks. Elias thumbed the comms on his wrist. "Sound check." A crackling voice responded. "Lieutenant Cho, hidden in the rocks above. Resonance matrix primed. Just say the word." Elias stood, deliberately unhurried, and walked to the edge of the ridge. The wind tugged at his fatigues, but his stance was unshaken. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "You brought an army to a radio fight," he called down. Silence. Then another wave of laughter from the Council's forces. Vextal tilted his head, the gesture almost amused. "Is this your defiance?" "Words." Elias smirked. "No, this is—" He raised a fist. A deep, subsonic thrum pulsed through the air. The ground trembled, not violently, but enough that the Council's front line staggered. Then a sound like 1,000 wine glasses singing in unison. The first helmet cracked. A spiderweb fracture split Vextal's visor down the middle. His amplified voice cut into static. "What?" Then the screaming started. Helmets shattered like glass. Corporal Malik was already moving before the last shards hit the ground. "Go! Go! Go!" she barked into her comm, her voice cutting through the chaos. Human soldiers erupted from their concealed positions, their lightweight composite armor unaffected by the sonic assault. Elias felt a familiar adrenaline surge as he charged down the slope, his boots kicking up plumes of rust-colored dust. Vextal staggered backward, clawing the remains of his shattered visor. The alien commander's face was a grotesque mask of shock and agony, his bulbous eyes watering uncontrollably in the harsh sunlight. His mandibles worked soundlessly for a moment before he managed to choke out a command. "Fall B." Elias's fist connected with the commander's jaw before he could finish. The impact sent Vextal sprawling into the dust, his remaining armor clattering like broken pottery. Around them, the battlefield had descended into pandemonium. Council soldiers writhed on the ground, their exposed respiratory systems struggling to process the oxygen-rich atmosphere. Some clutched at their faces, their multi-jointed fingers smeared with thick, blue-tinged blood. "Told you we fight dirty," Elias growled, pressing his boot against Vextal's thorax. The alien's chest heaved violently beneath his weight, each breath a wet, rattling struggle. Lieutenant Cho's voice crackled in his earpiece. "Captain, we got movement on the western ridge. Looks like reinforcements." Elias didn't take his eyes off his prisoner. "How many?" "2 full battalions at least." The transmission dissolved into static as a new sound cut through the air, the high-pitched whine of Council hover tanks powering up. Malik appeared at his side, her rifle smoking. "We need to pull back. Now!" She jerked her chin toward the ridge where fresh waves of black-armored soldiers were cresting the horizon, their weapons glinting ominously in the fading light. Elias hesitated for only a second before grabbing Vextal by the remains of his chest plate. "We're taking this one with us." He hauled the choking alien to his feet, just as the first plasma rounds began cratering the earth around them. The retreat was anything but orderly. Human soldiers laid down covering fire as they fell back toward the outpost, their boots pounding against the cracked earth. Elias could feel the heat of near misses searing the air around him, could hear the distinctive sizzle of plasma bolts vaporizing the ground where he'd stood moments before. Vextal stumbled and nearly fell, his breathing growing more labored with each step. "You don't understand," he gasped between ragged breaths. "This change is nothing." Elias tightened his grip, dragging the alien commander forward. "Funny," he said through gritted teeth. "From where I'm standing, it changes everything." Behind them, the first of the hover tanks cleared the ridge, its massive plasma cannons humming with building energy. The ground trembled beneath its anti-grav field as it took aim at the retreating humans. Elias didn't need to give the order. Every soldier in the unit knew what was coming next. The explosion when it hit was deafening. A wall of superheated air and debris slammed into them, sending Elias and his prisoner tumbling headlong into the outpost's outer trench. For a moment, the world was nothing but ringing silence and swirling dust. When his vision cleared, Elias found himself staring up at the smoking remains of the ridge where the tank had been. A jagged crater now marked its passing, the edges still glowing molten orange. Malik's face appeared above him, streaked with dirt and sweat. "Chose work," he croaked. She nodded, hauling him to his feet. "Took out 3 more behind it, too. Bastards parked right on top of our seismic charges." Vextal lay motionless in the dirt, his breathing shallow but steady. Elias rolled the alien onto his back and was met with a glare of pure hatred. "You'll die screaming for this," Vextal whispered, his voice thick with venom. "All of you." Elias wiped blood from his lip and smiled. "Maybe," he admitted, turning to survey the battlefield. The remaining council forces were regrouping, their numbers still overwhelming despite the carnage. The air smelled of ozone and burnt metal, and in the distance, more tanks were rumbling toward them. But not today. He keyed his calm as fresh explosions rocked the valley. "All units, fall back to secondary positions. And someone get me a damn medic. Our guest is starting to bore me." The line crackled with acknowledgments as the human forces melted into the outpost defenses, leaving the smoking ruins of Galactic Council arrogance behind them. Somewhere in the chaos, a single helmet fragment caught the dying light, glittering like a broken promise on the bloody ground. "You're wasting time, human." Vextal spat, his mandibles clicking with each labored breath. The bioluminescent veins along his neck pulsed erratically under the strain of Earth's gravity. "My forces will glass this pit within the hour." Elias stopped his pacing and leaned against the observation mirror, arms crossed. "See, that's what I don't get." He tapped his temple. "You watched your elite troops get dismantled by a resonance frequency. Saw your precious tech fail against what you call primitive weapons. Yet here you are." He gestured to the restraints, still talking like you hold the cards. The door hissed open, revealing Corporal Malik with a data pad glowing in her hands. "We cracked their comm logs," she said, ignoring Vextal's growl. "Turns out our friend here wasn't supposed to engage. This was a rogue operation." A ripple of genuine surprise crossed Vextal's features before he schooled him back into contempt. Elias whistled low, taking the pad. "Well now, High Command's going to love hearing about this little adventure." He turned the screen toward the prisoner. "Especially the part where you lost 3 battalions and 6 hover tanks to a mining outpost." Vextal strained against his restraints, the metal clanging violently. "You understand nothing. The great purification cannot be." The outpost alarm klaxons drowned out his rant, red emergency lights strobing through the chamber. Lieutenant Cho's voice blared through the speakers. Multiple inbound signatures. Capital-class signatures. Malik was already moving, her rifle snapping into position. They brought the big guns. Elias didn't waste time on dramatics. He grabbed Vextal by the throat, forcing the alien to meet his gaze. "Last chance. Call them off." Vextal's laughter came out as a wet gurgle. "You think I matter now? You've shown them what humans can do. They'll burn this planet to cinders rather than let that knowledge spread." The floor trembled as the first orbital strike hit the perimeter shields. Dust rained from the ceiling. Elias released Vextal with a shove and turned to Malik. "Get to the resonance array. Maximum dispersion pattern." She hesitated. "That'll fry our own systems too. Better than being atomized." Elias tapped his comm. "Cho, prep the black site protocols. We're taking their eyes before we go dark." As Malik sprinted from the room, Vextal's voice turned urgent. "You can't possibly." Another impact rocked the facility, this one closer. The lights flickered, then failed entirely, plunging them into emergency illumination. Elias moved through the crimson gloom like a specter, checking his sidearm with methodical precision. "Funny thing about glass," he said, sliding a fresh power cell into place. "It works both ways." Outside, the sky had turned the color of fresh bruises, streaked with the fiery trails of descending drop pods. The resonance array's activation whine built to a teeth-rattling crescendo, vibrating through the metal walls. Vextal's eyes widened as realization dawned. "You're not running," he breathed. Elias adjusted his goggles as the first warning lights of overload began flashing. "We never do." The last thing he saw before the array discharged was Vextal's mouth opening in what might have been a scream or a warning. Not that it mattered anymore. The world dissolved into white noise and blinding light as the outpost's final surprise erupted outward in a cascading wave of destruction, reaching hungrily for the ships in low orbit. Somewhere in the chaos, Elias thought he heard the distinct sound of shattering glass. Through the cracked transparisteel, the battlefield looked like a frozen storm. Council drop pod hung suspended mid-explosion, their hulls caught in the resonance field's lingering effect. The few Galactic soldiers who breached the perimeter stood motionless, their armor crystallized into fragile lattices that glimmered unnaturally in the dying light. Elias exhaled sharply. The air smelled of ozone and something metallic, like copper left in the rain. Vextal's restraints had shattered. The alien commander knelt amidst the wreckage of the interrogation chair. His carapace steaming where the resonance had licked across his exposed flesh. "Madness," he whispered, his voice raw. "You've doomed yourselves." Elias ignored him, tapping his comm static. He tried again. "Malik? Cho? Anyone?" The silence stretched until a single burst transmission crackled through, just 3 words in Cho's voice. "Protocol Omega active." The blood drained from Elias's face. He moved to the chamber's emergency console, his fingers flying across the dust-covered interface. The screen flickered to life, displaying the outpost's final systems report. His stomach clenched when he saw the timer. For 37 and counting down. Vextal let out a wheezing laugh. "Your own fail-safes? How poetic." He dragged himself upright using the wall, his movements jerky. "That gives us 4 minutes to watch your species' greatest victory become its tombstone." Elias was already moving, kicking open the damaged door. The corridor beyond looked like the guts of a dying machine, sparking conduits, collapsed bulkheads, and the too familiar scent of burning insulation. Somewhere deep in the facility, the Omega Protocol's countdown thrummed through the walls like a dying heartbeat. He found Malik halfway to the resonance array chamber, pinned under a collapsed support beam. Her leg bent at an unnatural angle, but her rifle remained clutched in white-nickeled hands. "Took you long enough," she gritted out as Elias heaved the beam aside. "Cho activated Omega," he said, hauling her up. Her sharp intake of breath told him everything he needed to know. They stumbled through the ruins together, past the frozen forms of friend and foe alike. The array chamber doors hung crooked on their tracks, revealing Lieutenant Cho's silhouette at the control console. The young officer didn't turn as they entered. His hands moved ceaselessly across the panel, inputting commands with single-minded focus. "Report," Elias ordered. Cho didn't pause. "Omega can't be stopped, but I can redirect the detonation." He finally turned, and Elias saw the blood trickling from his nose, the burst capillaries in his eyes. "Send it back along their command frequency. Burn out every council ship in the sector." Malik limped forward. "That'll take out our orbitals, too. The colonies will have 6 minutes warning." Cho coughed wetly into his sleeve. "Long enough for evacuation if they move fast." The facility shuddered around them as another section collapsed. Somewhere in the distance, Vextal's laughter echoed through the ruins. Elias made his decision in the space between heartbeats. "Do it." Cho's fingers danced across the console one last time. The array's damaged core flared to life, its harmonic pulse building to a skull-splitting whine. The screens flashed crimson warnings. Omega Protocol engaged as the countdown accelerated wildly. 059, 058, 057. Elias grabbed Malik's arm, dragging her toward the emergency shaft. Move. Cho didn't follow. He remained at the console, his back straight, his hands steady as the numbers blurred downward. The shaft's ladder burned their palms as they climbed, the metal growing hotter with each rung. Above them, the surface access hatch glowed red around its edges. Elias hit it shoulder first, bursting out into the apocalyptic landscape, just as the ground heaved beneath them. The sky was on fire. Tendrils of golden energy arced upward from the ruined outpost, lancing into the clouds where Council capital ships hung in low orbit. One by one, the distant specks blossomed into silent explosions, their deaths painted across the atmosphere like macabre fireworks. Malik collapsed beside him, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Cho! Elias watched the last resonance wave terror through a dreadnought silhouette. He knew what he was doing. The words tasted like ash. Below them, the outpost finally surrendered to Omega's embrace. The ground collapsed inward in perfect silence, swallowing Vextal and the ruins and the broken bodies alike. Only when the dust cleared did the sound reach them, a deep, tectonic groan as the earth settled into its new hollow. Malik's fingers closed around a shimmering fragment of Council armor. They'll come harder next time. Elias stood, offering her a hand up. The horizon burned behind them, but ahead, the first evacuation ships were already streaking toward the colonies. Let them, he said, turning his back on the grave of kings. Somewhere in the distance, a lone helmet fragment caught the firelight, its edges glowing like a newborn star.